In this video, we're going to explore linear demand curves and what they tell us about price elasticity. I'll walk you through graphs to show how flatter curves indicate more elastic demand, while steeper curves reflect more inelastic demand. We'll also discuss the numerical values that define whether a curve is elastic or inelastic. By the end, you'll be able to visually and mathematically identify elasticity on a demand curve.
Now I'll show you the graphs for our price elasticity of demand. We have price on the y-axis and quantity on the x-axis. Remember that our price elasticity of demand is meant to show you how responsive quantity changes are to change in price. So if you have a relatively flat curve, like this one, this is going to be elastic if it's flatter. If you have a relatively steep curve, that's going to be inelastic. Steeper. Okay. So I want to do a price change. Let's just start from this price change P1 here. And that's going to give us quantity 1 on both graphs. That's why I'm starting from where they intersect. We're going to lower price down to P2. And we want to see the change in quantity across these two curves. If we're on the red curve, the inelastic one, take P2 all the way over to the inelastic, and you'll get Q2 elastic. Sorry, Q2 inelastic. All right. And you have that much increase in quantity as you lower the price. However, if you do the elastic curve all the way out here, I ran out of room, quantity 2 elastic, that flatter curve is going to have a much bigger change in quantity. That's what I mean by more responsive in terms of quantity changes. As if for the same given change in price, which curve gets the bigger change in quantity? That one will be the more elastic one, a flatter one. The one that has a much smaller change in quantity, less responsive, will be an inelastic or steeper curve. Okay, great. So there's going to be definitions on actual numbers of what we mean by inelastic or elastic. So an elastic curve, we have our price elasticity of demand, like a number here. And so that thing is going to be between negative infinity and negative 1. Right? If it's between negative infinity and negative 1, it's going to be elastic. Okay. If your price elasticity is between negative 1 and 0, we're going to call it inelastic. Okay. And so these are like not including those endpoints there for that. Okay. So if you have something like a price elasticity of demand number that's something like negative 2, like we had for the Uber example, what that means is if price goes up by 1%, quantity demanded goes down by 2%, right? And so the quantity change 2% is bigger than the price change 1%, and so we're going to call that elastic. Right? For something that's inelastic, we would have a number that between negative 1 and 0, so think like 1/2, and we could interpret that as the price goes up by 1%, quantity demanded goes down by 1/2%, or less than that 1%. So the quantity change here, 1/2, is smaller than the price change, 1, and so not very responsive. Smaller change in quantity, that means we're going to be inelastic here for a curve like that. Now, you might say, what's going on with that negative 1 in the middle? If your price elasticity is equal to negative 1, we're going to call that unit elastic curve. Unit elastic just means unit for 1. And so here we would have a price increase of 1% leads to a quantity decrease of 1%. Right? So the price and quantity changes are equivalently the same size, 1 and 1, for a unit elastic curve.